Hello everyone, it's Mariners Fanatic back with another YouTube video, and in today's video I'll be going over my dream off-season scenarios. Obviously things are still up in the air with the approaching CBA discussions and deadline, but even though it's been quiet so far, I expect things to get rolling this week as awards finish up. Hopefully Scott Service can win that Manager of the Year award, and then hopefully we can follow that up with some awesome news for the next couple weeks of videos. With that said, give me your off-season plans slash scenarios in the comments below. Mix it up, make sure there's trades and signings in there, throw around some dollar amounts, and we'll discuss it in the comments. Go ahead and like this video, and if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that, as about 75% of people that watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, I'll keep producing Seattle Mariners content. With that said, let's get into the videos and the scenarios. In scenario one, the major trade will be for Luis Castillo. I had him in my trades video a couple weeks ago. I might be looking at tweaking that trade, as with other teams in the mix, like the Dodgers, the trade I suggested in that video seems a little bit light. But the main focus is targeting and trading for Luis Castillo. We would then follow that up by trading for Trace Barrera of the Washington Nationals. The Nationals are a team that have a lot of young catchers at their disposal, and being the fact that our depth at catcher is very light, I would like to trade for and acquire Trace Barrera. Jerry has talked about that they're likely going to stick with the same catcher group from last year, and I don't necessarily see that as a huge problem. However, I think both offensively and defensively, Trace Barrera would be an upgrade over Tom Murphy, and then defensively, he'd be an upgrade over Luis Torrens. Barrera is a guy I'd like to see come over to the team through a trade. Moving on to signings, our first signing would be bringing back Kendall Graveman. This is presuming that either in that trade for Castillo or Barrera, or in another trade that Steckenrider is involved. Our bullpen is very solid right now, and dealing from that depth and including a guy like Steckenrider or Swanson even in a trade could be very useful to us, and would also open up a spot to bring back Graveman. Now this is obviously more Mariners fan bias. I'm not sure if that bridge has been burned with the trade deadline move, but I'm hoping that that's not too much of a hindrance. But the only other reason why I don't see this happening is maybe the bullpen's not as big of a focus for Jerry this go around, which would make sense. But I still would like to see Kendall Graveman come back to us. Moving on to the next signing, we would be bringing back James Paxton as well. From what I've seen, Mariners fans are about 50-50 on this. Well, obviously, a lot of people are concerned with the injury history, but I think that bringing him back would be very useful for both sides. Paxton obviously loves Seattle. He came back here. He was in the dugout for pretty much every game, and bringing him back gives him another opportunity to showcase his talent and rebuild his resume for that next contract. He would likely be the 4 or 5 starter, or at minimum, he would be a left-handed arm in that bullpen. I'm not sure if he would be willing to pitch out of the bullpen, but Kendall Graveman used to be a starter and switched to the bullpen. So there's an outside possibility that Paxton could do the same, and it might actually help him. The next lower tier signing we would be making would be for Yoshi Tsutsugo. Now you might look at his numbers and be like, why would we sign him? But if you look a little bit deeper into those numbers, Tsutsugo had a really good half season with the Pirates last year, and it seems that there might be some direct correlation with the substance bans. There were offensive players that saw their numbers climb after substances were banned, as there were other pitchers like Kikuchi who saw their numbers fade away once that ban was put in place. So it affected both sides. And Tsutsugo is a guy that he's not going to start every day, but he'd be a good first base platoon option potentially. But mostly we'd probably be seeing him in a DH role, which for me I see is perfect. You have Luis Torrens DH against lefties, and you have Tsutsugo DH against righties. Getting into the bigger signings, our next signing would be Seiya Suzuki, coming over from Japan. As a player with a lot of talent, most likely would play corner outfield, right field, left field, but also has some ability to play in the infield, specifically more for us, would probably be third base. There are definitely going to be other teams involved in his market. Specifically, I've heard rumors about the Rangers and Red Sox being involved, but ultimately I think we can sway him to come to Seattle. We would then follow this signing up with our biggest acquisition of the offseason in signing Marcus Semien to play second base. Like I said, this would be our centerpiece signing. Semien would be a huge difference maker in that lineup, and I'd love to see him in the Mariners uniform. We're obviously going to have competition from the Giants and his former team in the Blue Jays, but it has been said that he prefers to be on the West Coast, so hopefully that is used to our favor and we just have to beat out the Giants. Overall, looking at scenario one, we're making 2 trades and 5 signings. The 5 signings would cost us about 55 million, and then with Luis Castillo, he's not making a crazy amount in arbitration, but it would boost that up a little bit. So we'd be looking at a payroll in the 90 to 100 million range, which is league average. We'd be spending about 55 to 60 million, which I think is pretty fair for this offseason. As we have the money to spend, and we should spend money, but we shouldn't go overboard, as we're not trying to win the World Series in 2022. It's about getting to the playoffs first. And then the next offseason, we can augment that with players. But I definitely see this as a steady progression. And personally, I really like scenario 1 here. And this is the framework I would like to see our offseason direction go. Moving on to scenario 2. The headliner trade in this scenario is trading for Ketel Marte. Marte is obviously very versatile, can play second base, which would probably be his primary position if we were to trade for him, but then he can also fill in center field. Obviously, there's some bias because he was a Mariner before, and it's a bit of a theme in this video, but hey, I'm a Mariners YouTuber, so that's just what you're going to get. I think the trade prediction that I made in my trades video is pretty fair or similar to what a trade would have to look like to acquire Ketel Marte, and so that would be kind of the main focus. But ultimately, some way we've got to get Ketel back in a Mariners uniform. The second trade would be trading for Richard Bleier. I already talked about why he would be useful to us in that trades video. If you want to go check that out. But this would be a solid under the radar move. I see either Drew Steckenrider or Tom Murphy being involved in this trade. We might even get a prospect from the Marlins as well. But bringing in a guy like Bleier would be very beneficial to our bullpen, and it would bring the lefty bullpen arm that I've been talking about all season into the fold, and that's definitely something I would like to see. Moving on to the signings with some more former Mariners, we would be bringing back Chris Taylor, who's just another Swiss Army knife that we can plug and play wherever we need him. He's got left field, center field, right field capabilities, as well as second base and third base. Obviously, again, I've got some Mariner bias watching him play at Everett before he made it up to the Mariners. I never liked that trade in the first place, but I think you move past that and we bring him back, and Jerry can right his wrong in that regard. And another guy let's bring back would be Brad Miller. Similar to Tsutsugo, Miller would be that first base DH platoon, and he also has some ability to play second base and third base. Miller's a great guy. I'd love to bring him back. He's also a lefty bat, as I mentioned with Tsutsugo, who would be useful to us to break up a right-handed heavy lineup, and I think this is just a really good move overall. The next signing we would be making, and this would be presuming we make that trade for Bleier where we move Tom Murphy or we move Murphy in another trade, would be signing Yan Gomes. Yes, he's older, but he has a much better track record in this league of being a solid defensive catcher as well as consistent, decent offensive output. Now, I don't think catcher's the priority, so it's not likely that Yan Gomes is in a Mariners uniform, but it's what I would like to see and hope to happen. The next signing in this scenario is Eduardo Escobar. Escobar is a cheaper, younger, better offensively and defensive version of Kyle Seager. Kyle Seager's gone. He's not coming back. But Eduardo Escobar would be a cheap signing to bridge that gap between someone like Noelvi Marte, who I personally see moving to third base, especially if JP Crawford is our shortstop. Escobar is definitely a short-term move, but he's a guy that had a great year last year. He's had some solid years in the past, and is definitely a guy that would lengthen this lineup. The final and big major signing of the offseason would be Kevin Gausman. 6 years, about 150 million. It'd be a similar contract to Marcus Semien. Again, our main competition with both these guys is going to be getting him away from their previous team. In this case, Gausman being with the Giants. The Giants are likely to re-sign him, but if we could pry Gausman away, that would be awesome. Gausman is that ace starter that we've been needing, and ultimately, in both of these scenarios, I looked to fill the major needs of this team, which is an ace signing, a left-hander in the bullpen, some leadership pieces, some familiarity, and then just offense in general. In this scenario, it would be a little bit more than scenario 1, but not much more. It would probably push us close to that 100 million league average threshold, maybe a little bit over for payroll. But overall, both scenarios are pretty similar and follow the same framework. Like I said earlier, put your guys' scenarios in the comments below. Let me know. I think I was a little bit conservative with both these scenarios. We could definitely go bigger. I'm hoping we don't go less than this, as this is kind of my expectation. Jerry cannot be outbid like he was last offseason. Last offseason, it wasn't as big of a deal getting outbid for guys like Colton Wong. But this offseason, it matters. It's about making the playoffs at this point, 2022 is about making that wild card. 2023 is about winning that division, and 2024 is about winning the World Series. The whole thing is a progression, and so that's why I was a little bit more conservative with these scenarios. But ultimately, it's about building to that World Series product on the field, and some of these guys that are included in the scenarios are going to be around for that hopeful World Series team. Anyways, guys, I hope we have some more Mariner news coming soon. Keep expecting videos from me, and like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Mariners Fanatic, out.